Shalom, family. All right, welcome to another Sound Sabbath class, okay? And for this class, we're going to be getting into Memorial Day, okay? Understanding a lot of the history, the custom things associated with it, and just, is that something we should celebrate, shouldn't celebrate, and just kind of seeing where those things lie, okay? And rightly dividing the word of truth. So the first thing we're going to do is go to history.com and we're going to get a little bit of the background from it, okay? Um, so now, from history.com, and it reads Memorial Day is an American holiday. Okay, Memorial Day is an American holiday observed on the last Monday of May, honoring the men and women who died while serving in the U.S. military. Memorial Day 2025 falls on Monday, May 26th. Originally known as Decoration Day, it originated in the years following the Civil War and became an official federal holiday in 1971. Many Americans observe Memorial Day by visiting cemeteries or memorials, holding family gatherings, and participating in parades. Unofficially, it marks the beginning of the summer season. So this is generally what we're dealing with. When I scroll down, the birthplace of Memorial Day and early observances. The Civil War, which ended in the spring of 1865, claimed more lives than any conflict in U.S. history. It required the establishment of the country's first national cemeteries. By the late 1860s, Americans in various towns and cities had begun holding springtime tributes to these countless fallen soldiers, decorating their graves with flowers and reciting prayers. It is unclear where exactly this tradition originated. Numerous different communities may have independently initiated the memorial gatherings, and some records show that one of the earliest Memorial Day commemorations was organized by a group of formerly enslaved people in Charleston, South Carolina, less than a month after the Confederacy surrendered in 1865. Nevertheless, in 1966, the federal government declared Waterloo, New York, the official birthplace of Memorial Day. Waterloo, which first celebrated the day on May 5, 1866, was chosen because it hosted an annual community-wide event during which businesses closed and residents decorated the graves of soldiers with flowers and flags. So, did you know? Each year on Memorial Day, a national moment of remembrance takes place at 3 o'clock p.m. local time. Decoration Day. On May 5th, 1868, General John A. Logan, leader of an organization for Northern Civil War veterans, called for a nationwide day of remembrance later that month. The 30th of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now line almost every city, village, and hamlet, churchyard in the land, he proclaimed. The date of Decoration Day, as he called it, was chosen because it wasn't the anniversary of any particular battle. On the first Decoration Day, General James Garfield made a speech at Arlington National Cemetery, and 5,000 participants decorated the graves of the 20,000 Civil War soldiers buried there. Many northern states held similar commemorative events and reprised the tradition in subsequent years. By 1890, each one had made Decoration Day an official state holiday. Southern states, on the other hand, continued to honor the dead on separate days until after World War I. So, history of Memorial Day. Memorial Day as Decoration Day gradually came to be known, originally honored only those lost while fighting in the Civil War. But during World War I, the United States found itself embroiled in another major conflict, and the holiday evolved to commemorate American military personnel who died in all wars, including World War II, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. For decades, Memorial Day continued to be observed on May 30th, the date General Logan had selected for the first Decoration Day. But in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which established Memorial Day as the last Monday in May in order to create a 3-day weekend for federal employees. The change went into effect in 1971. The same law also declared Memorial Day a federal holiday. Memorial Day traditions and rituals. Cities and towns across the United States host Memorial Day parades each year, often incorporating military personnel and members of veterans organizations. Some of the largest parades take place in Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. Americans also observe Memorial Day by visiting cemeteries and memorials. Some people wear a red poppy in remembrance of those fallen in war, a tradition that began with a World War I poem. On a less somber note, many people take weekend trips or throw parties and barbecues on the holiday, perhaps because Memorial Day weekend, the long weekend comprising the Saturday and Sunday before Memorial Day, and Memorial Day itself unofficially marks the beginning of summer. And that is the conclusion of Memorial Day from History.com. So let's deal with it. So this is your first segment one, just getting more of the history. So understand that again, Memorial Day is not to remember the country of America, or known as the United States of America, nor its flag, but rather the people that died while serving in its military. Okay, that's very important. So, because usually when we deal with various holidays, we deal with these things aren't to be celebrated. Number one, because most of these holidays have pagan origins. That's what makes them bad. Which is different from if you want to have a particular tradition, even amongst your home, family, loved ones. It would be Taco Tuesday. Nothing wrong with a Taco Tuesday, have no traditions, as long as it doesn't go against the words of the Most High. Remembering those types of things. And before I really, can yay or nay this, I have to always ask myself, how does God feel about it? What does he think about it? Not me. And then secondly, always understanding what may make me so invested in celebrating or participating in anything. So let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1 through 2. So there's a lot of segments this. Hopefully I can cover them all. If not, always be a part 1, part 2, most high permit. Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1 through 2. Book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 1. And I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual, but as unto carnal, even as unto babes in Christ. So there's times when, you deal with Paul's teachings, and when dealing with certain, of the congregation which he was helping to build throughout various places, he couldn't always speak as his level of wisdom and study would allow him to do, because it could go over the heads of a lot of people because they're not as versed or studied. Doesn't mean that they're dumb. No, I'm not saying that. But not everyone is as invested in their spiritual growth and their knowledge and education. So you have to meet the people where they're at. So there's a difference. In verse 2, it says, I have fed you with milk and not with meat, for hitherto ye were not able to bear it. So before I've only given you the milk. I haven't given you the meat. Haven't given you the heavy things, because before you weren't able to bear it. But reading on, it says, and neither yet now are you able. So even now, certain things you're still not able to get the way that I would want you to get, because you're not quite there yet. I would like for you to be there, but you're not there yet. And for certain people, online watching that, you can be on either side of that fence. And the difference will be how you process things, accept things, with depending on if you have that understanding or if you lack it. So let's get the next segment. Now let's understand this. Okay, let's lay this foundation. Does God memorialize this country or its leaders? Okay, does God memorialize this country or its leaders? So, in short, no, because they are in a place where they're moving ungodly and they're perpetuating things that are ungodly in the eyes of the Most High. So, let's get Revelation 18, 8 through 10. Let's get the book of Revelation, chapter 18, and let's read verse 8 through 10. Book of Revelation, chapter 18, and verse 8. And it reads, therefore shall her plagues come in one day. So the plagues being, various curses, misfortune, judgments that will come upon Babylon the Great in a short period of time. Okay, getting hit with all these things in a short period of time, because a day isn't very long, especially when compared in relation to a month or even a week, let alone a year. So short period of time. It says her plagues shall come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong the Lord God who judges her. So, and this is something that is both literal and figurative. How? Figurative because the things concerning death, mourning, famine, these things will come incrementally as, God begins to bring different judgments upon the earth. It's going to happen. However, at the same time, it's also literal that there will be certain events that will take place that will cause these things to happen on a massive scale, and that these things to happen all at once in one day, that so it's dealing with both of those attributes. Okay, so verse 9, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. So now, why are the kings of the earth, or the rulers of the earth, even if they're not referred to as kings personally or by others, that's what the Most High identifies them as, because that's the position in which they sit in. Need they use the term pharaoh or president or so on and so forth. So now, how they committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, because other nations have bought into the Americanized lifestyle, the American dream. So, and have bent their ways in order to adopt, the Americanized way. And so that they can also prosper with being able to be successful in business and trade, with Babylon. So that's how you have that. But you're doing it at the expense and cost of destroying, your people, and destroying them first, mentally and spiritually. So because now that influence starts to corrupt your people, and they want to, hey, I want to see how they do things, and I want to be like them, and leave off from your customs and the things that you held dear, your standards. So now, and it says they shall bewail her and lament for her. Why? Because they're going to see when this place goes, man, this place allowed us to build our wealth to where it is, and now without that, who's like, no one else is. Cause remember, America, it's a big consumer. It's like a big company, a big business. So all these other countries aren't doing things no way. They're not having this high lifestyle and excessiveness of living at the same scale. So no, what other place you can do where you can profit as much as you would be able to here? So I was in verse 10, and standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Because the Most High, he's going to allow things to get to a point where as we deal with, the destruction, especially like things of nuclear warfare, then it's going to um, be something that will devastate, this country. So things that'll be felt around the world. It won't be a secret. It won't be hidden. So it's one of those things to where it's going to be, massive. Let's get Isaiah 14:3-8. So because through this we get an understanding of the judgment, what's going to happen in this country, how, you know, God feels about it, so that we understand, okay, I'm seeing where God is at, and even getting, there's a reason as to why. Let's get Isaiah 14:3-8. So Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 3. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. So these are all the things that God is coming back to save us from. Remember, we're not just praying or asking for a Savior for no reason, or just, for anything. No, there are specific things when it comes to a Savior, things you need to be saved from. It's not just, just save all. No, save from what? God is specifying. So that, because remember, after that, in order for there to be deliverance, there has to be judgment. Same like in Egypt. There were deliverance, but what was there first? Judgment. That has to be the same thing. So now, it's saying it shall come to pass in the day, and in that time, in the future that is still yet to come, prophesied that it will come, that the Lord, that the Most High God, shall give thee rest. That is that Sabbath. We're going to enter into that Sabbath. We're going to have peace, joy, happiness. Rest from what? From thy sorrow. Nothing to cry about anymore. Nothing to cry about anymore. Anything I made you said, don't worry about it no more. And from thy fear. You don't have to fear about anything. You don't have to live in fear or be scared about anything. No more. So, scared to walk down the street, scared you might get robbed, scared you might get shot, scared you might get harassed or oppressed. So, don't have to worry about that anymore. And from the hard bondage. And remember, you're still working hard bondage, even to this day. The jobs you're working hard bondage. You spend long hours, even before. And as people say in the biblical days, they wasn't working as long an hours we working now. No, that was not it. You might work around like a 6 a.m. to noon type thing and be done. Rest of the day spent with family and friends. Build. So like totally different setup. So now you working sun up to sundown, spending all day gone. You can't even miss days like that. You can't just take off. You got to show up and be there. Someone always hounding you, micromanaging you, your day and your time, for pennies on the dollar, for crumbs. Not even be able to thrive, just being able to survive, living paycheck to paycheck. That's not blessed. That's cursed. That's cursed. That's hell. So you can't take a month off if you wanted to. Most of us can't even take a week off, to be honest. So that is hell. That is hard bondage. That is a curse. God is coming to get us out of that for those that are worthy. Verse 4. It says that thou shalt take up this proverb. A proverb is a saying. It is a saying. It could be one that could be wise, or it could be one that could be a insult or things that nature. It's just a saying. Doesn't matter if it's okay. What goes up must come down. That's a proverb. Or just, one that is, CPT time. That's a proverb. But now that's one that has a negative stigma attached to it, because colored people time, they always late. So that's a stigma. That's a proverb. So that can become also a byword. So now you shall take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. So let's read. And say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. So now, because it's known that Babylon is known for oppressing, bullying other countries. So ruling in that type of way. The golden city, not that the city is literally made out of gold, and not that it's literally just what we think a city, but no, it's a country making reference to being seen or as a city, and a golden city, because it flows. When you think of gold, gold is valuable, and there's wealth with that. Well, it's the same thing with Babylon the Great today. There's wealth in it. It's a mighty empire. It's not a poor country by any means. Verse 5, the Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked. That staff is used in rulership, to show that one is leading or in rulership. But he said he's broken the staff of the wicked, that no, they're not going to be ruling anywhere. They're not going to be in power anymore. And the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. That it's going to be a flip. It's going to be in a situation where, hey, Babylon is going to be persecuted. Babylon's going to be being destroyed. And no one's going to try to get in the way of that, to try to save them out of that. No. So, 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. The whole earth will be in peace when that day happens, and will be quiet. Finally, that peace will come. Because remember, in order to have peace, you got to get rid of those who always want war, who always want problems, always starting problems, always trying to control everything and bully others. So, and it says they break forth into singing. You're going to have rejoicing in that day and age, and when that time comes. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feathers come up against us, because the excessive use, the overconsumption, and these things, the deforestation, and to promote certain lifestyles and things. You have that, but that will no longer be the one of the predominant things on the earth. So even the trees will rejoice and be happy. So now bringing this up. So did people of, what we identify according to the scripture and history, people of Israelite ancestry die serving America? Yes. So now, for those that you may have lost, would it be a sin to, bring them in and remember if they died in particular war serving? Because remember, even like we read in history, a lot of people, more for those that died in the Civil War, which a lot of our people served and died in, so, and with that, there's different ways people feel like, damn, they died, and remember, a lot of people got drafted too, forced to fight in these wars, and you have that, go to war, go to jail. So is it a sin, can I honestly say it's a sin to honor, those individuals? No, I can't say that. I can't say that. The people of our nation that fought and died, for a country that hated them, or even somebody say still hates them. So you have that. But just keep in mind, when you honor someone or something, honor what is good, just and righteous. Honor those who have honor. So don't honor the murderers, the rapists, the thieves, etc. So it's given, respect where respect is due. Let's get Sirach 10 and 2. Let's get the book of Sirach or Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 2. Let's get Sirach chapter 10 and let's read verse 2. Look at Sirach chapter 10 and verse 2. And it reads, as the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. What manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. So understanding that, you know, I'm not necessarily as in a space, for those who I may have known that at a certain time, not necessarily in a space to try to do something altogether, but if I understand that, hey, that I lost a loved one in that regard, yeah, I might, go take some flowers and, put in their grave, or take, some time to, think about them particularly. You may have those things. But I don't want to uh, allow myself to be seduced or overcome, with all of the, affairs that, some may try to bring down my lane. Let's get Proverbs 12 and 26. Let's get Proverbs 12 and 26. There's a balance. Let's get Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 26. Book of Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 26, and it reads, the righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. So it's understanding some things you can begin to be, seduced. So into doing things that can go against the word of the Most High. And especially with things where, with Esau, let's get Proverbs 11 and 21, they always want you to be included in the things in which they're doing, in order to always empathize with them and side with them. So, but it's remembering that, why did these things, happen, and how did they happen? Remembering the history. Let's get Proverbs 11 and 21. Book of Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 21. It says, though hand join in hand, because you had that, hand join in hand. We're holding hand. We're all brothers and sisters in arms. We're all the same. You have that. Those things can come or run in tandem, with these things. It says, though hand join in hand, the wicked should not be unpunished. So it doesn't matter if you're trying to hold on to certain people or things. If anyone is not moving righteously, they're going to be judged. They're going to be punished. You're going to have that. It says, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. So, see, the righteous is going to make it, So with this, you just have to be mindful of not getting seduced, something that you want to be one with who the Most High God identifies as your oppressor, as the enemy, because that can get you caught up. So it can get a lot of our people, caught up. So just understanding that as well. So let's get the next segment. Is it a sin or wrong to serve in the army or government of other nations? That's something that's also on the table that certain people may ask themselves or ask others. In short, no. You have others like Moses, Joseph, and Daniel, for example, all served in the government of another nation and all held high offices, very high offices. However, they all, fought to stay righteous, even if it meant costing them their freedom, career, or their life. So if you're in that, you want to be in of that same mind, that, yeah, I may serve in this regard, but I make sure I put the Most High first in how I execute. And God loved all those individuals. He didn't see them as traitors or, why are you trying to serve in that? Why would you want to be in those types of offices? No, he didn't do that. And usually these things, it allowed them to not only elevate themselves, but allowed them to elevate those other nations or help elevate their nation as a whole. So if the Most High allows you to be blessed in that type of situation, sometimes needs you be looking for it or not. That's not a sin in and of itself, and you're not deemed less than just off of that or because of that. Let's get Genesis 41 through 46. So, because like again, remember, even with the Civil War, that our forefathers and foremothers that were enslaved, they wanted to honor those of our people that fought and died, because like damn, fought and died fighting for a nation that hates you. So I mean, understandable. So let's get Genesis 41, 41 through 46. Genesis chapter 41, verse 41. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. So see that? He got elevated. Set over all the land. He was the second in command, but in many ways operating as the primary guy in many ways. So, because you have that, some people do that where, yeah, you say it in command, but you're given the authority that the one who was primarily in command could do a call to shots on, but they choose to relinquish it and give that to you. I trust you enough to make the decisions on these things. So that's a blessing and an honor. So 42, and Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand. You see that? Like, hey, this is what shows my authority. Hey, I'm taking it off and I'm giving this person the authority. So what? So that you see, if it's coming from this person, it's just as good as it coming from me. So, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. So everything to show that level of honor, prestige, and nobility. And made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. You had that. Man to be respected. But it wasn't just something given just because. No. He earned that through performing righteousness faithfully and being of an excellent character and nature that matters. So that's how he got it elevated into that position. It wasn't just given out like candy. Oh, here you go, just because. No. So it wasn't just given out because of one's pedigree. No, but because one chose to operate in the nobility of their pedigree. You have people that can come from nobility, doesn't mean they choose to carry themselves in that way. Right? It's a choice. Verse 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So you see, even Joseph, which few of our forefathers, they, married or had wives of other nations, which at times God allowed, but then no, because the reality is the seed would be of our pedigree, but the thing is, the problem was the influence was number one, that the influence could seduce you and take you as that man away from celebrating and worshiping the Most High God the way he wants to be worshiped. Both that man and then the children, because the children are being taught and nourished by that woman. If she doesn't believe in these things or practice these things, then it can lead to now your children don't. So, and that was kind of the thing, even like with Moses and his wife. So that she didn't believe in, the thing. She didn't believe in the circumcision. That's why she ain't did it. Didn't want to do it. But understanding marriage is still a covenant that's Most High God gave to all. So, and men still moved in the marriage realm and still did the duties of a husband. Those women may still, perform the duties of a wife in those situations, even if they weren't practicing everything that we practice today. So, Now, verse 46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So, and he was still young, you know, just hitting, 30, just coming out of that being very young, out of his 20s, but 30, that's still, a good prime youth time, and having to be able to lead and get things together to have things run successfully, and that can be inspiring because many leaders, they did start leading from young ages, you know, whether Joseph or you deal with who else? Daniel and the three holy children, you know, David, Solomon, you name it. You can be young or very young and lead. A lot of it just deals with you being groomed and taught from your youth up. That's really the biggest thing. And that's why even like with leaders, they make sure they teach and groom from the youth up to prepare you for that. So to make sure that you were able to be successful in those slots because you were being taught from a child up, and there's others even to this day, a more affluent background, especially, Esau, Edomite, they have that more. Hey, I need to make sure you're learning these things out earlier, sooner, so it prepares you for these things. So that way, by the time you get up older in age, it's second nature from you. You already know by the time you 20, 21, how to run a business in a company. You're already, a supervisor, if not manager type material. So they take more pride and prestige, in that. From there, let's get Exodus 2:11 through 12. So that's what we see with Joseph, right? Let's get Exodus 2:11 through 12. Let's get Exodus chapter 2 and verse 11. Exodus chapter 2 and verse 11. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So even don't get it twisted, even though Moses was growing up as an Egyptian, he still knew who he was, still knew who his people were. And he still had a care and concern for his people. It wasn't just like, well, shoot, that's what they going through. I'm good over here. He didn't have that type of mindset or attitude. Even as a young man, he didn't have that. So, because it showed that as a kid, it wasn't just he popped up grown and all right now, but no, as a kid, even he was still curious and watching, but he was limited because I'm a kid. But now that I'm grown, I have more freedom to be able to see these various things. And especially, he still had those concerns as a very young man. As a very young man in his 20s, having these concerns and things of that nature. It wasn't something that he was just self-centered on himself or trying to live his best life. So that's important. Verse 12, and he looked this way and that way. When he saw there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So you had that. He was in a place where he wanted to put his people first in his life. So you can only imagine him in his 20s, 30s, 40s, that this was something that was important to him. And seeing what can he do to try to improve the condition of his people. And it got to a point where, hey, man, enough is enough. I got to do something. I got to do more. And he jeopardied his life, his career, his well-being, because he got to a point where I can't stand to see this level of oppression against my people. That's honorable. That's something that these are people to be honored. When you see it, and this is part of how the Most High God honors them through giving them, like He says, an eternal memorial. And first and foremost, by preserving them, their names, and their history, and these various pages that we read. This is their memorial. This is them being memorialized, and they're able to be memorialized not just a day, but every day. That's the power of the Most. That's how the Most High. That's why you read. How come the Most High didn't? How come we don't really have, certain days, thing like? Because the Most High, this is how He preserves. This is how He gives you that memorial that the world can read about. Real talk. The world can read about this. That's how the Most High does it. Nah, y'all gonna get memorialized, all right? So I got y'all. Yeah, every day memorialized. Every day of every week, every month, every year. For those that want to. Because what is that? Memorialize that memory, right? This helps keep their memory alive and what it is that they did and went through. But these are people that are honorable. They're worthy to be honored. And even a lot of our feast days, we have feast days. Remember, we have Mordecai's day. But look at what Mordecai did for his people. Mordecai and Esther's day, that's Purim. It's known as Mordecai and Esther's day. Mordecai's day. We have Memorial Simon. That's another one. We're memorializing a leader of our people. That is sin? No. But again, it's not just about, it's what they did for their people. It wasn't as much about them as it was the sacrifice and fighting that they did for the sake of their people. So that's the big thing we have to keep in mind. Let's get Exodus 1, 7 through 10. Exodus chapter 1 and verse 7. The children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. And now rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So you have, when it came down to, the works and things we may do, those things other than they may hide, they may not give credit where credit is due, or those things can be, forgotten in time or in history. I mean, that's why Most High does his best to preserve the main things of our history, and there's still many more people to be honored, that aren't mentioned in the scripture because it's not enough to contain them all. But the Most High is fighting to give us an eternal memorial and an eternal memorial for all those who are righteous, to inherit an everlasting good name. That's truly what we're seeking. What the Most High is working to give us. Let's get Daniel 6, 1 through 5. Get even with Daniel. Let's get the book of Daniel, chapter 6, and let's read verse 1 through 5. The book of Daniel, chapter 6, and verse 1. And it reads, It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes. Listen to this is important. So 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. So what are we looking at here? These are all of your, what we would see today as it will be referenced or parallel with Babylon. These are your governors and mayors. Your governors, mayors, and commissioners. 120 over the whole thing. So you can arguably say, Babylon may even have the same, but not more. When you look at all the various, high offices that are held. So now verse 2. And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first. So over these 120, there were 3 presidents. 120 leaders, right, for the whole kingdom, and then 3 presidents, and Daniel was the top dog. Some people didn't know that about Daniel. Yeah, Daniel rose, he was the top dog over the kingdom. He was a top government official. Because most people know Daniel and his dreams, visions, and things, but no, Daniel was a high-ranking government official. So, Most High God did that. But it's because Daniel had an excellent spirit on him. He's someone that you would think always on time, always doing the right thing, got along with everybody. Like he knew how to operate and network in that regard. That
Most High God worked with him and elevated him. But when you read the scriptures, did Daniel sell out? No. Did Daniel bend his ways to get him? No. He maintained his faithfulness until even to the point where it was going to cost him his life. So look, this is where you got to look at the type of people that are being memorialized. That we read in the pages of this book. That's the standard. So let's read verse 3. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes. So out of those 120 plus 21, 22, 122 people, because those three presidents, but he was one of them, of the three. Out of all those other people, he was preferred. So he wasn't just the top dog just to be the top dog. It wasn't just, I just like his haircut, put him there. Or he funny, put him there. But no, how he meant he was preferred. Think about that. Are you preferred in your job? Can people say they prefer you? They like being around you? They like talking to you? You get along with everybody pretty good? You're helpful? Can people say that about you? Are you one worthy of honor or prestige? And if not, okay, notice it. Now, what can I do to change it and be better and do better? Because our forefathers and foremothers, they tried to do that. It wasn't to envy or oppress or thing that, no, it was to excel because that's what we try to do, excel. That's one thing I give, like, we deal with like white supremacists, supreme. Be the top. We got to be the top. We got to operate in every position. We got to be on top. We got to be the doctors, the lawyers. So everything is and from that we put all the people right and make moves happen. Yeah, and look out for our yeah. Those things are good. Those covet the best gifts. That mindset is good. All nations should adopt that mindset. I'm not necessarily going to agree with all the lives, all the choices, but that is something in which our people carry. Trying to make, look out for not just me, but the benefit of my people. Yeah, that's good. That's the way you want to think. That if I make it, who else can I bring with me? Or who else can I be an aid to? Let's continue. Verse 3. Then this Daniel, and they got to make sure because they got to make sure who you're talking about. This Daniel, not just, not Daniel from down the block, not Daniel from the west side. Nah, this Daniel. This is the one we're talking about. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because, now this is why, the reason, because an excellent spirit was in him. Not a mediocre one, not a subpar one. He wasn't just trying to do the minimum. Some of us be on a job. I'm just doing bare minimum. No, I'm doing excellent. I'm excelling. Because Daniel didn't start there, worked his way up there. Be excellent. Work up to that. So it says because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Like, same thing with like what? Like with Joseph. I mean, dang, how much higher can you go? Like, man, look, the king was like, I'ma fall back, and you just lead. You just lead everything. I'm giving it to you. I don't even need to be here. You can lead I believe you can lead the whole thing. You be top dog. You gonna retire me, and I ain't got a problem with it because I trust your leadership, your mind. I trust your spirit. I trust your mindset. I got faith in how you think. You know how to get it done. You got to think. People trust you like that? Because they trust you because you could work for a company. Someone could watch you like, you know what? Man, I would want to get this to my kid, but they just going to run into the ground. I'd rather give it to you. You might have that pull you to side. You know what? I'd rather, even though, I got kids and got my son and daughter, they not ready. They're going to run to the ground. But I seen how you are. You've been faithful these past 10 years, 15 years, whatever. I'd rather give this to you. I'd rather honor you with this, That's why you can have that if you work up towards it. I'm just saying, not every situation is the same, but you know. Verse 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. So when other people started to hear this, especially of the other nations, especially of the, because there is king of the Persian Medes, especially the Persian, like, what? You trying to do all this for him? He ain't even our people. People be, slide talking and things like, man, how you gonna set him up like that? And people start murmuring and stuff. And now, guess what? It's when the haters come out. Somebody drinking that haterade. Got the haters coming out. For real. This is where it came. This is how Daniel ended up in that lion's den. Because guess what? When people hate you, they will plot against you. You got to remember that. Daniel was in the government. Guess what? You got haters, and they will plot against you. They will strategically try to get you out of there, get you fired. This is people trying to get you fired now. How can we get him out of office? We need to find something. We need to bring up something against him. Now you got people plotting on your downfall. This is what happens. Hey, our forefathers, they've been there. They've been there. If that's happened to you, you ain't the first and won't be the last. It says, but they could find none occasion nor fault. That's what you want too. Stay clean so they can't find nothing against you. Stay clean. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. That's how you want to be. Like, damn, I'm trying to see, like, did he turn his reports in? Damn, he always turn his reports in. They be finding stuff, He be showing up late. Damn, he always early. He always had 30 minutes early. I want to show 30 minutes early and be on time. People start feeling some type of way. Trying to see, you can get him rolled up for something. You rolled up. Man, let me check. What time you be clocking in? Damn, flawless. You clocking in better than me. Making us look bad. How's someone gonna make you look bad? Is it because you're not doing because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing? I'm making you look bad? No, you make yourself look bad. You're supposed to be doing the same thing I'm doing. But you don't want to do it. You don't care. So that's what you have. Verse 5. Then said these men, these same leaders, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. That's when now that they got to attack. They got to get you with your faith. They got to get you on something. All right. We know there's something that you do that goes against the rules and regulations of this into what we believe in. See? That's what happened. So that happened to you. Notice that's how it's going to happen. That's the domino effect. You got to know something you do is going to go against the rules and regulations of this government. So now they got to learn and see what you all about, your background, what you were, and look at this. Well, you see you doing this, right? Well, technically, AR, 2-10 paragraph 3 says, yeah, see, that's technically not supposed to be happening. See, technically, we get them on that. That's how they plot against you. So, but Daniel ain't fold. He stayed righteous no matter what the cost was. You have to do the same. These are the people that you honor. These are the people you keep in memory, and these are the people that the Most High God is honoring. He is memorializing through preserving them, their name, and their history in his holy book. And that's not even to the extent because they're still going to have that eternal memorial. That's truly what we're fighting for, not something we get once a year. No. That's why you don't really read those. Yeah, you have certain things, that'll have, in our feast days, but that's always to understand what was done for the benefit, of our people, saving our people. Let's get the next. Ooh, let me see. Nah, there's a lot left. So, next year we'll just do a part 2. Just note I left off on segment 4. So, we didn't get into segment 4, but Most High permit. Next year we'll deal with does God memorialize any that served? So and we'll continue, but pray that helped you get an understanding. Um, more so with the history concerning Memorial Day, some things to really keep in mind to guide your decision and just to move in wisdom, especially those without when it comes down to things where hey, I understand this may not necessarily have the pagan roots tied, but how should I navigate concerning these things, and how should I feel towards these things, just dealing with that toward the scriptures, okay. um, and of course people may ask, well, do you personally celebrate or honor or do anything in terms of Memorial Day? No, I personally don't. You know, treat it as any other regular day. But now, if you were to personalize it, and if I had, you know, um, someone close to me who fought in the war or fought in the Civil War, things of that nature, um, would that prevent me in terms of we go see grandpa's grave, put some flowers or things. I wouldn't, if that was something like my family was doing, I wouldn't be opposed. Hell no, I ain't coming to put no flowers in it. Nah, I wouldn't, take that type of approach. If that's part of what someone's curious of, or, a concern or something on your spirit. But I wouldn't at the same time pour a whole lot into it like I'm trying to go to all the festivities offered, in terms of that day either. You know. Um, but, just saying, hey, hopefully that helps, God's people. But most I'll permit, we'll continue because there's still a lot that I have to cover. But hopefully that, helps give you more of an understanding, to make, some wise judgments concerning how you'll move and operate. Okay. So